Hi everybody, welcome to this video, and this is day 8 of our writing marathon, and we're going to get started right away. So here we have a task 2, which goes something like, some people believe that children should be banned from using their phones during the school day. Others believe that children should be allowed to use their phones. So this is a discuss both views questions, okay? So what we need to do is basically discuss both views, obviously, right? As you already know, step 1 is to analyze the question, right? So what do we do to analyze the question? Well, we first identify the general topic. What's the general topic? Well, the general topic is using phones, right? And who's the focus? Well, it's, school. Well, are they like school children, right? Okay. Uh, how do we say that? School children or like students at school. Yeah. Okay, that's better. Now, next, well, what's the issue here? What's the question? Whether or not they should use, right, phones during school. Okay, and what's your take on that? What's your initial position? So my initial position, like when I first looked at this, well, I'm a little biased because obviously at school, I had a hard time dealing with this problem as well because I had to use my phone in school, which is why I would say that, well, they should be allowed, right? But when we do the idea generation, that's when everything starts. Now, step 2 is idea generation, right? So this is where we come up with as many ideas as possible and then rule out some of those, right? Some of the ideas that do not necessarily make that much sense or cannot be explained that much, let's say, clearly and thoroughly. So let's first identify, or let's say, let's say some, try to come up with some ideas for some people who believe that it should be banned. Okay. Uh, Phones should be banned during the school day, right? Why? Right? Why should be banned during the school day? Why? Well, let's start with some like basic points. I believe that, right, and many people believe that it's, well, phones are a distraction, right? What else? Phones are a distraction, and uh, well, I don't know, maybe phones just, how do I put this? Well, phones, uh, well, there's only one idea that I can come up with. Phones are a distraction, they're unnecessary during school. What else can we come up with? Should be banned during the school day. Well, uh, it's a distraction, waste of time maybe. Waste of time, right? So waste of time during school. Unnecessary, like, what else? Why would you need a phone in class? Okay, so you could always, if you have to call, you could always use the school phone. What else? Right, we need to try to come up with as many ideas as possible. Now I'm like, okay, um, the best way, like I explained in our last video, if I did, obviously, then there are 3 ways, like, or maybe even more ways of coming up with ideas. Well, you need to sort of like come up with ideas from a perspective of school children, right? So why? Probably some sort of tension, right? You see, like now that I thought of it, from the perspective of a school kid, I already got the idea. Like tension between students, like, some of them have access to phones whereas others don't, so this creates a tension between peers, right, which is potentially going to compromise their friendship because they'll like, and this may also mean some parents will have to go out of their way to buy phones for their children, right, even if they don't have enough money, right? So like tension, there's this unfair advantage that wealthy kids have, right? So that's good. Now, let's try to think of this as teachers. What would it be? Well, um, this would definitely disrupt the flow of the lesson, right? Flow of the lesson. Like we already covered, phones are a distraction, right? Both for the teacher and for children. And this would potentially mean that the lesson will be disrupted, disturbed because of this technology. Like they may, take their phone to take a photo, or maybe they can do something else, like, probably uh, play games, and this is definitely gonna distract the teacher, which means that the lesson will not be as effective. So I guess these ideas are enough, and then we're gonna rule some of them out later on when we shortlist them. Shortlisting ideas is just as important as coming up with ideas, as generating ideas. What I mean is, if you have enough ideas and then you boil them down, or let's say narrow them down to only a select few, which can then be expanded very well, then that's the biggest, well, how do I put this? Well, yeah, that's what you should do. You shouldn't just come up with ideas and then write about them right away, right? You shouldn't use those ideas right away. You need to evaluate them. You need to see if they're valid, if they can be expanded, if they can be given a reason for, or if they can be given an example for, because you obviously need an example from your own knowledge. Now, moving on. Like phones can also. Oh yeah, I already. I also come up. I've just come up with another idea. Like leakage. Leakage. What it means is basically some students may want to take videos, right, of some unjust situations where the teacher, right, treats some of the students unfairly. Well, this is great, but there's supposed to be no strings attached, like how students are able to spread it like wildfire, right? Like spread those videos, but it may also mean that the teachers will also be judged unfairly, because maybe the student may have just taken a short video of something that had bigger context. You know what I mean? Just like they do it with YouTube videos, they just take a clip and then post it separately without giving any reference to the actual video, to the whole video. And what happens is that um, the message is distorted, obviously, right? Because you just take away the most important parts of it and only post that propagated part of it. Like that's what we call propaganda. And yeah, I guess this basically makes a lot of sense. Now, more than that, what else? I guess let's now talk about the other side. They should be allowed. Okay. All right. Like let's try to come up with as many ideas as possible for this particular well, side, or whatever you'd like to call it, a view, right? They should be allowed to use phones during school. Well, let's just say that lesson materials will probably, or lesson materials through phones, right? So like in this digital world, I believe that in this digital age, we all need smartphones, because that's where we store important pieces of information. In the same way you would probably use phones to well, to get access to your homework, right? So they should be allowed lesson materials through phones, but you can always use you can always use laptops. What's happening here? I was first leaning more towards the view that school children should be allowed to use phones. But now that I've done the idea generation, I realized that I actually prefer this one. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm talking about. When you write, when you start writing without thinking, without planning, that's when the problem emerges, because what happens is that you just write and write, but you don't, for a second you don't just take time to think that your arguments for the other side that you don't agree with may be stronger than the arguments, right, than the side that you agree with. What that means is, um, when you just write, you can't come up with ideas as you write. But when you first plan, you will know which part to choose, and only then you will start your introduction, your body paragraphs, and this will be even more logical. And this is definitely going to help your task response. You see, lesson materials through phones. What else? Um, well, more effective learning. Um, more effective learning through phones, such as videos, and articles, right? And what else? Um, I believe they should be allowed. Lesson materials through phones, more effective learning through phone. Okay. What else? What else? Well, students may need it in case of, emergencies, right? So let's assume that you're on the way um, back home. Well, assume that you've, injured yourself or something. You can call your parents, right, when you're alone. I mean, the reason why I'm saying that is because you couldn't, justify using phones during the school day, because oh yeah, that's where the problem, again, another problem, because this is asking is during the school day, right? So yeah, I think it also means the recess time. Recess means break, and also the commute. Okay, I guess that makes sense. They need that in case of emergencies. What else? What else? What else? Let's try to come up with ideas. Um, they should be allowed because what else? Parents. Well, we covered the parents' perspective. We covered the students' perspective. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this side. And as you can see, I have many more ideas for the side that I first disagreed with than the side that I agreed with, right? Now, what do we do now? We basically shortlist the ideas. And to help us do that, we try to question our own ideas. You know what I mean? So the reason why we do this shortlisting, where we get rid of some ideas that we will not be using, is because um, the examiner will be doing the same. The examiner will be reading your response and be like, this doesn't make sense, right? So before you even write your essay and let the examiner criticize you, it's better to avoid that just at the beginning, from the start, without um, taking a risk, right? Without, how do I put this in the best way possible? How do you put this in terms you understand? So imagine your examiner will definitely criticize some of your points, like will be questioning whether or not this makes sense, right? So we're just basically taking precautions, way ahead beforehand. You know what I mean? So we're basically evading the trouble, or yeah, we're evading that point where the examiner will criticize us anyways. So why don't we criticize ourselves at first? Why don't we come up with some shortcomings? Why don't we find the shortcomings of each of our ideas, and then we'll rule some of them out. So phones are a distraction. Yes, this is obviously, is it a distraction? Yes. Why? Well, because students may not be able to resist the temptation of having their awesome digital device, and it keeps sort of like, when they, especially when they keep it at hand, they may want to check out their social media, for example, right? Kids are obviously not self-disciplined, right? Okay, this checks out, so I'm not gonna rule this out. Waste of time. Well, waste of time, it's sort of like the same thing as a distraction, because when you how do I put this? When you keep checking your phone for any messages, or if you keep using your phone during class, you'll not learn anything, which is potentially going to lead to a waste of time. But this is way too irrelevant or way too far. You know what I mean? So we're gonna check this out. Unnecessary. Um, so okay, unnecessary. Are phones unnecessary? Well, just like we said here, you may need a phone in case of emergency. So we're gonna get rid of this as well. You see, we'll be trying to come up with some critical points ourselves. Tension between students. Well, that makes a lot of sense, right? But the examiner may also ask you, what about clothes, right? Like they may have clothes that also, well, but clothes are not as expensive, right? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Disrupt the flow of the lesson, obviously, right? So you see, guys, we can link this with this one. Like when phones distract the students, it also distracts the teacher, and that's definitely gonna well, disrupt the whole lesson, the whole flow of the lesson, like affect the flow of the lesson. Leakage, some moral issues, right? So that's what we're concerned with. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we have ideas that are quite, similar, so that we can use them, use some of them as supporting ideas. So if we choose this, what that means is, you know, or we could have two body paragraphs. What do you say? I guess we could have two body paragraphs, or we could have one paragraph with two main ideas. That should still be okay. But for you guys, I recommend you have one main idea in your paragraphs, in each paragraph, right? Because this way you will basically stand your, stand yourself in good stead for when you write your essay, because that's easier, right? Trying to come up with or trying to write something based on one main idea is also going to help you with your task response. But I'll show you how I would write a body paragraph with two main ideas. Okay, they should be allowed. Let's rule out some of the ideas. Lesson materials through phones. Well, yeah, that makes sense. More effective learning, such as videos. Well, this is basically the same thing, right? And then this is one main idea, and this is another main idea. Okay, so I guess all of these reasons make sense. But we're gonna, well, merge this into one. All right, great. Now let's plan our body paragraph. Step 4. This is right, planning. And you guys may not have understood that PL structure, but let me explain it to you, better. So point basically means why, right? Example or evidence means how, and then another example or evidence means how, like how is that how possible, and then link is so what, or so what, and then the link can also link both of your paragraphs. Okay, the two paragraphs you may have in the middle, that's its function. Now what's our point for the first paragraph? Well, phones are a distraction, right? Well, remember, we're gonna have 2 points. Phones are a distraction. So okay, how, right? So we explained why phones should be banned, because they're a distraction. How? Well, video games and social media, right? And the effect of that is, right, so we're sort of like explaining it. This can also disrupt the flow of the lesson, right? You see, I'm using it as a supporting idea, this one right here. Okay, disrupt the flow of the lesson, and I'm not gonna have a link just yet because we haven't finished our paragraph. Now I'm gonna have my point 2, right? So what's the other point? The other point is, well, which one are we gonna go with? Leakage, or I guess, like, how about we basically come up with a broader main idea for that? Like what I mean by that is moral or ethical issues, right? So using a phone brings about ethical issues. And pay attention to my progression. I'm starting with a lighter idea at first and then going to something more grand later on. So ethical issues. It causes ethical issues. So what is it? Well, how, right? Or okay, how does it leak it, right? Like leaking videos where teachers are mm, falsely demonstrated, maybe, right? An example of that could be like um, beating or not beating a student, but beating a student or something like that. Um, and we're gonna have our explanation number 2 because we have another idea, which is tension between students, right? Tension between students. And our example number 2 is how like or an example of tension between students. Well, uh, mm, unfair disadvantage due to financial uh, well, incompetence, right? And our link would be uh, well, this is a phones potentially uh, affect the quality of education as well as students uh, behavior and morality, right? Because a student who's brave enough to leak videos is, well, yeah, that's not a good sign, right? Okay, next paragraph. Um, we would talk about some. All right, how do we deal with that? Let's see. Less materials through phones. Okay, so mm, why should children be allowed? Actually, we're supposed to have our, in our paragraph 1, it's better if we acknowledge the side that we don't support. This way it's better, right? Because then it will be more logically progressive. You know what I mean? So our first peel, right? Our first point is uh, more effective learning. How, right? Well, uh, different or okay, immediate access to phone to homework, right? Or to or like better variables, like or more variables. Uh, and our example for that would be videos and articles, right? So what I mean here is, everybody is hardwired differently. Some people are, well, they better learn when they see things, when they watch things, and there are other people who better learn when they read things. This is basically, going to personally tailor, right? Tailor the classroom materials personally to the student's needs. Um, okay, our point number 2 be, let's what was it? Uh, well, it's necessary, right? So it's necessary. And what's our example, right? Uh, example for that would be on the way home, right? And they may need to call their parents or the ambulance. And then the link would be right. So however, right, we're gonna basically link this to the other paragraph. However, it causes grander issues or uh, these or the potentially more effective learning uh, and the fact that students may need phones uh, are offset by some, let's say, mm, some issues, some more or grander issues behind phone usage. See, I am linking my first paragraph with the other one, and what I'm doing with the other one, or the next one, is linking or circling this one back to my original point. I have 2 points, by the way, so I'm like summarizing these 2 points. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much it for this video, everyone. Everyone. I was gonna go with everybody, but then I changed my mind to everyone. Anyways, I'm gonna share with you the essay that I've written after this. But until then, make sure you watch this video carefully, and I'll see you around.